It's so exciting to see the previous two speakers today. I started my career developing software for automated reactor systems and trying to connect PAT into it, specifically in process R&D. And what we did back then in the early aughts and were able to give versus what's today and what they're doing with the sheer mathematics now is just astounding. It's exciting. The discussion today that I'm going to focus on is a new tool that can supply a lot of data to those softwares and do it quicker than what any of us are available to do today. So what we will be looking at, and just as a quick abstract, is a new tool called the Proteometer. This tool does direct analysis of biological extracts and giving you answers in 10 minutes or less. No sample prep. I'll repeat that. You're not doing any sample prep except out of a crude culture filtrate. And what it's targeted at is looking at multiple CQAs and being able to provide data in process R&D and eventually manufacturing, certainly, so that you can make better predictions and utilize some of these fabulous softwares. I'm presenting today, just as a point of clarity, for Dr. Fred Rainier. He could not make it today due to a family issue, so I'm stepping in, but I'll do my very best. And Dr. Mina Narsenham, all who have developed this patented technology, multiple patents on it, first published, I think, in 2018. So we'll go from there and speak a little bit more about it. So there's a problem that Fred identified, and a lot of people do kind of struggle with in continuous process validation, and that is that the sampling associated with understanding what's happening on a molecular level, specifically in the structures and the post-translational modifications that are happening, as well as the ability to understand and predict what you can do if you had a very good definitive answer to each of those. So the problems is that you take the sample out, you do a lot of multiple steps to prepare it. It's usually very much CQA or maybe 2 CQA specific, so you're going to be doing multiple samples to test multiple CQAs. Then you have to run it through an HPLC and then a mass spec, and meanwhile that reactor is just churning back there. Or if you're in an Amber 250, you've got 6 or 12 reactors just churning without being able to take some adjustments. So with that fundamental problem, a number of customers that we were talking to, major pharmas, major CDMOs, they said, we're having problems and we can't address it with the normal ELISA and LC-MS methods. For instance, can they in a single day or in a 24-hour period be able to take 100 samples and be able to give the good molecular structure data so that they can make some good decisions or learn more about their process? Well, you can't. The sample prep takes too long to allow that to happen. You can go right down the line here of the various items. Can you run it in a non-laboratory environment? Try as they might, people have been trying to put a mass spec on the production line forever, and with limited success, it just hasn't worked. So what can we do to improve that situation? Well, first let's look at the important critical attributes that people are going to be looking at. Everything from methionine and tryptophan oxidation to aggregate content, glycation and glycosylation to be able to understand what's there. Those are like the holy grails. And what could we do if we could be able to see these happening in near real time? We're saying anywhere from 0.5 minute to 3.5 minutes. Wouldn't that be amazing to be able to use that data to control our processes? Well, the development of what's called MASC, or Mobile Affinity Sorbent Chromatography, was developed by Dr. Rainier and his team. What he did was he took coding to a different level, and this is not software coding, this is actually coding molecules. And what we're doing is applying affinity-based nanoparticles that have fluorescence on them and allow you to be able to capture very specific molecular structures and be able to capture them in your own LC and really anybody's LC with a fluorescence detector on it. So here you get great adoption, as was mentioned earlier about the software. Some of that adoption is a lot of work, but imagine if you could do it with your own LC with only a little plug-and-play device. So all of those different CQAs can be attacked with the different coding agents, and the focus was to try and make that happen. So there's been published literature. This has been published in the literature, and patents have been awarded on the technology, and I'll describe and show you some of the results that we've had to date. We might mention also how this works. So think of having a plug-and-play reactor column that you could put into your LC. And in that reactor column, because of the affinity nanoparticles that are in it, you have the ability to put in a sample, you have crude culture filtrate, be able to capture and tag individual, for instance, if you're looking for aggregation, the ability to tag aggregates. And of course, because they've now tagged to a bigger molecule, they'll go through, as an example, a simple size exclusion column, they'll go through much faster, and you'll get a single peak. You'll no longer, out of those 1,500 different components, have to decipher multiple peaks to figure out what the heck's going on. You're going to get one peak, or if you tag multiple CQAs, you'll be able to see only those in your chromatogram coming out. Essentially what it's doing is it's unlike the ELISA and the microarrays where you have this diffuse difference and the equilibrium. What you're doing in the whole process is going ahead and doing the affinity selection, the binding. You're doing some washing and separating in that reactor, and then doing it with a final wash without protein A and without any type of digestion happening in the process itself, and you get very, very, very quick results. Essentially, you could probably say that this is like a new ELISA, right? It's a sandwich assay that's happening in a chromatography column. So what do the results look like? Well, first, if you look over the left slide, you'll see that under standard LCs and evaluations that you're looking at, you have multiple peaks, and each one of those has to be studied. They have to be quantified and then calculated to see what's happening. What happens with Mobile Affinity Sorbent Chromatography, or MASC as we call it, utilized on the proteometer assay, you get one peak. Right? You get a peak, well, one major peak for your CQA, but you do also get tighter. So the results are that based on this and doing it in a sample size of less than 20 microliters, in most cases everything that we're doing now are less than 10 microliters. So it works very, very well for process R&D. You can take tiny, tiny samples out of those small reactors that you're using without hurting the overall volume of the system. It's linear over a range of concentration. There's a lot of data to be provided on that. And this is data, by the way, that has been proved in pilot applications as well, including with some major instrument manufacturers. It seems to work, or it's been proven to work. I don't say seem, it's a fact, that you can plug and play this into 4 out of the 5 major LC instrument manufacturers and get these results. So, and more importantly, there's a robustness to this assay. We've been running this multiple different monoclonal antibodies with various post-translational modifications. We're running them 800 to 1,000 times with perfect duplicity. The accuracy is just unbelievable on this. Here's some example data, on 3 different monoclonal antibodies that were run, and we're looking at this data based on 3 different IgGs, the 1, 2, and 4 derivatives that are showing that, once again, you're getting that single peak, identifying that particular CQA. You're able to do so and give data to the softwares that you're using for making decisions, much like you would a pH sensor or a temperature sensor. It's a single point of data that's very critical in your overall process. So for instance, imagine being able to do a titer, whether you're upstream in reactor samples like we're presenting here, or downstream in some just post of your filtration or your other purification processes, and you could in near real time be able to tell what your titer was as it's coming out. It's a very powerful piece of data, and as you can see, the RSDs on these are pretty darn strong. We're showing real nice repeatability on these as well. So here's some examples of what you're looking, what we've been able to achieve using different monoclonal antibodies that are tested with some of our partners and manufacturing partners. And with the exception of that one case where the RSD is a little bit high, we had real low peak areas in that case. And that can be improved, but what we're able to say is that when you apply this then to the 800 or 1,000 individual data points and running it in a full process over 14 days, you can get very, very high accuracy in this ability. So we have a change now, right? We're going from taking a sample out, doing a bunch of sample preparation. After we're done with all that sample preparation, running it through, having to analyze all the data, to where there were a lot of problems with the ELISA or the LC-MS because it just took so long to get the data, and maybe it wasn't as accurate as it could be. With this new proteometer that is being released actually this week, what we're finding is that we can get positive, the green means go, answers to all that case. I reference one particular point that's interesting, and Dr. Dreier could probably talk you leagues about this, and if you notice, there's no subject, or it's not subject to analytical artifacts. What he means by that is that when just the simple process of breaking up the molecule in a mass spec, you create artifacts. It's very well known and shown throughout literature that this is a fundamental problem that happens with some of these analyses. Because we're not destroying the molecule in the case of the utilization of the MASC technology in the proteometer, you end up not having that. It becomes less of a factor overall in the process. And then you, of course, use that for the dependent decision making that you might do in a process down the line. So where can we go with this? Right now, the product has been really focused on what the customers, a group of customers, have been demanding from us, and that's the ability to focus on aggregates and titer throughout the upstream process. We can utilize the very same platform. So the MASC or the proteometer platform can be applied to the evaluation of other coded items. So for example, you take a look here at a monoclonal antibody, a charge variance determination. You can see that the data becomes very, very accurate with respect to how it is referenced in the literature. In the upper side where you have the literature where there's some data that comes from CPACs as well as the NIST standard data, if you compare that to the samples taken out of a crude culture filtrate and thrown through a proteometer, you see that no matter what variant you're looking at or the purity, the numbers become very, very repeatable over literally hundreds and hundreds of samples taken throughout the process. You could also use this very simply for an ultra-fast titer. What we're showing is early data. This is something we're hoping to release later in the year. We're doing all the work and doing some pilots with some partners on it. But essentially, what we're looking at is an ultra-fast titer that you could do in line. Take a sample and be able to within 30 seconds to 1 minute, be able to get your titer number and do so, as you can see, with great accuracy. It's the old technology that you might use, ELISA or something along those lines. You're going to take a long time. You'll be 8 hours away from that. And if you think in process R&D, if you could have answers in 10 minutes instead of every day or at the end of the day when you do your test, it becomes a very valuable tool, or we believe that it'll become a very valuable tool in the industry. We've been able to apply this also to the animals as well. In this case, we're showing some data from both porcine and equine data, and once again, you're seeing the very strong peak, very calculable, very repeatable over hundreds and hundreds of tests. And once again, just with a retention time of 3 to 4 minutes, you're going to be able to, at any time in your reactor, have some very actionable data without having to go through a long process. Everybody wants to do glycans and glycosylation. That's like the holy grail. There's some very good early data that's coming out that this new model and the MASC technology will be applicable. It's so hard to get in there and see what's happening. And some of our customers are saying, hey, we want to know how much of the good stuff we are producing at any one time versus looking at the CQAs or any post-translational modifications based on glycosylation issues. So what we're presenting here is some early data that we were at this point with the aggregate data in August of last year. So it's believable that we will release this product by the end of the year or the beginning of next year for the glycosylation. We're always open to partners that we can work with that can help expedite that. So yeah, that would be a great thing for everybody to work on together. So there's the plan release for the ability to use this tool. And excuse me, so far we've been hitting every one of our dates. The team that we have is fantastic. We have a big team of engineers and scientists that are just rocking it every day, running tests and making it happen. So doing very quickly, which I think everybody will love this because it is lunch hour, there's some conclusions here. First of all, the direct analysis of biological extracts and getting answers within 10 minutes with no sample preparation is very, very much possible and being proven in both laboratory and real life applications. You have a simultaneous analysis of multiple CQAs. You're doing it's only limited by the number of detectors that you put onto it. So for instance, it's common that fluorescence detectors will have 4 separate peaks that could be captured. Well, if you do them in line, maybe you could capture 8 in the same time frame. And then finally, you're getting actionable data that for most of the people that are coming to this, it gives you a really, really good answer. And in conclusion, I'd like to thank the team and Dr. Rainier. You can see him standing there to my right on that picture on the left. He continues to bring new patents, and he will be publishing on a lot of this newer technology that we won't present this year. We'll present next year for the BPIOS. So I'd like to thank every one of the people in our team and open it up for questions.
The proteometer, is that a useful device? Is that a mixing chamber? I kind of didn't see how it worked. How do you add the affinity binding reagent to then see what goes on?
Sure, very good question. You're feeding the affinity selectors or the nanoparticles in a continuous microliter stream into the proteometer reactor itself. And those proteometer reactors, depending on what you're trying to go after, will have a lot of similarity to your common size exclusion column or a charge variance column. And what we do is treat those columns so that they help in the ability for the affinity selectors to do their job. So without getting into too much maybe IP conversations. So yeah, they do act like a mixing device, but also as a washing device and the ability to push the larger molecules through so you can get that very nice peak.
Just following up on that a little bit, because it's obviously you're looking at from the angle of like maybe handling a lot of samples at a time, especially tighter, and then the nanoparticles involvement. How do you envision in terms of its cost effectiveness as compared to other high throughput titer methods, for example, available?
Sure. It's another very good question. What we've done is develop this device so that it matches the common cost per assay that you achieve with other current methods. So ELISAs are running $3 to $4 an assay, and we're right in that price range. So yeah.
So with regards I'm just trying to understand really from my perspective I can see potentially how the technology works. How are you sampling from a bioreactor currently? Because that's
Sure.
going to be the limitation beyond the analytics in my mind.
Right.
So
Right.
I don't want to be potentially introducing contamination every time
Mhm.
to sample, and if I want to sample every hour, someone physically got to go and do it.
Right.
So I was wondering if you're looking at connecting with like MASC systems or peer systems, or what is your kind of technology development in that space?
Sure. Yeah, and that's the biggest question in any of this is this automated sampling techniques, especially when you get into manufacturing. It's going to be very, very critical. A couple of companies are becoming very, very good at that, I'm losing the names off the top of my head. I was talking with some of our AstraZeneca folks about that today. They're getting very, very close. So the use in manufacturing is not quite there, but they're very much headed that way. If you're going to do it in process R&D, then, well, you're going to use the same sampling ports that you're using currently to take that sample out and be able to run the assays that you do now that take you, whatever, 2, 4, 8 hours. So use that same sampling method that you're already using today without introducing that contamination, and you'll be fine. Remember, these are microliter samples, so you don't need very much to get a really good answer very quickly.
And this might be a redundant question, but I just want to make sure that I ask this anyways. You showed a lot of consistency data, obviously, but when it comes to other CQAs, which you are still working on, have you used orthogonal methods to make sure that the accuracy of those results is there too, other than the consistency part?
So have we used what kind of methods? I'm sorry.
Just orthogonal, like some of the MS work. For example, if you look at the sequence variant analysis, I think
Right.
I don't think there is any other way for you to maybe verify it using other than MS.
Yeah.
And here, I don't know how that's going to work out or visualize.
Very, very good question. Yeah, we're blessed actually because we're just outside of Purdue University, and actually license 2 of our multiple patents are licensed from Purdue. So we have a nice arrangement where we can do confirmatory tests on very big, powerful mass spectrometers and other technologies, so that we don't want to be barking up a tree, right? We don't want a bunch of people trying our product and saying, well, wait a minute, this doesn't work, and I'll prove it to you. We've gone through that effort, and we did with some of our investors' funding invest in mass spec as well, so that we can do very quick tests without running over to Purdue every day.
This is definitely exciting technology for sure. Any other questions for Paul?
Yeah, I was wondering what the calibration process is like, and then if there's like a generic process to go with the product.
Yeah, great question. What we're doing is we are calibrating everything to the NIST MABs currently right now. And mind you, we have focused only on monoclonal antibodies currently. We're a small company, and you go too many ways, you diffuse yourself, and you never get anywhere. So right now we're using that for all of our standard and calibration kits. As a matter of fact, we give the calibration in the kit form that's handled out, so that you can use your own NIST. You don't have to buy them from us. We'll be happy to put them in the kit if you would like them. So yeah, that's your starting point for your process.